The stars had always watched Earth in silence. For billions of years, they burned in the darkness, while life slowly grew on the small blue planet. Humans looked up at those stars with wonder and fear, always asking the same question: are we alone? The answer came on a cold winter night. Commander Rohal stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. He was tall for his species, with gray skin and 4 eyes that had seen countless worlds burn. Behind him, through the massive window, 800 warships followed in perfect formation. The Grand Armada of the Velen Dominion stretched across space like a river of death. How much longer? Rohal asked, his voice deep and tired. He had done this many times before. Too many times. The excitement of conquest had left him years ago. Now it was simply work. 3 planetary rotations, Commander. His navigation officer replied. The target world will be in weapon range soon. Rohal nodded slowly. He looked at the small dot of light in the distance. Earth. Such a tiny thing. The Velen scouts had studied it for decades. They found a species still fighting among themselves, still burning dead plants for energy, still unable to leave their own star system. Primitive, weak, easy. Send the standard message, Rohal ordered. Give them 1 rotation to surrender. Tell them resistance will result in complete destruction of their civilization. The message was sent. Rohal returned to his quarters to sleep. He expected to wake up to the usual response. Panic. Desperate pleas. Offers of tribute. It was always the same. On Earth, the message arrived at 3:00 the morning. Admiral Kang Do-hyun was 63 years old. His hair had turned white 10 years ago, and his eyes carried the weight of a life spent preparing for the worst. He stood in the command center of the United Defense Council, deep beneath the mountains of Korea, and read the alien transmission, "Surrender or die." He said quietly, "They certainly don't waste words." Around him, screens showed the alien fleet. 800 ships, 2 million soldiers, weapons that could crack the planet in half. Every military expert on Earth was watching the same images. Every government leader was on the emergency communication network. "What do we do?" asked a voice from the American president. Fear was clear in his words. "We can't fight that. We can't fight anything like that." Admiral Kang turned to face the screens showing the world leaders. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, scientists. All of them looking at him. All of them waiting. "We do exactly what we plan to do," Kang said calmly. "We activate the Horizon Protocol." The Horizon Protocol. 3 words that only 12 people in the world truly understood. 3 words that represented 30 years of secret work, trillions of dollars, and the greatest deception in human history. It began in 2031, when humanity first detected the Velen probes entering the solar system. Small, silent machines watching Earth from the darkness. The world's governments realized the truth that night. Aliens existed, and they were coming. The public never knew. The news never reported it. On the surface, humanity continued its normal life of politics and entertainment and small wars. But beneath that surface, everything changed. Dr. Yoon Sora was 25 years old when she was recruited into the protocol. Now she was 55, and she had spent half her life building weapons that physics said should not exist. She stood in her laboratory, watching the alien fleet on her screens, and felt strangely calm. "They have no idea," she whispered. Lieutenant Baek Jinwoo stood beside her. He was young, only 32. Born in the same year the protocol began. His entire adult life had been dedicated to this moment. "The orbital platforms are ready," he reported. "All 12,000 satellites are active and waiting." Dr. Yoon nodded. "How do they look?" "Same as always. Space junk, dead metal floating in orbit. Nothing special." Jinwoo allowed himself a small smile. "Just like we designed them. That was the beauty of the Horizon Protocol. For 30 years, humanity had been launching satellites into orbit. Weather satellites, they said. Communication systems. Scientific instruments. Old broken equipment that was too expensive to bring back down. The world believed it. The aliens believed it too, but every piece of that space junk was actually a weapon. 12,000 weapons, spread across Earth's orbit, each one capable of doing things that the Velen Dominion thought impossible. General Park Minji entered the command center with quick steps. She was 50 years old. Small in size but large in presence, she had commanded armies, won wars, and kept the protocol's secrets for 20 years. Admiral, the defense grid is at full power. All stations report ready. Kang looked at her. And the response message? Written and waiting. Just need your authorization to send it. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Around him, the screens showed the alien fleet moving closer. 800 ships filled with soldiers who believed they were about to conquer another primitive world. Rohal and his officers probably laughing at the weakness of humanity. Kang thought about his grandchildren. 2 little girls who loved to watch the stars at night. They didn't know about the protocol. They didn't know about the weapons. They only knew that their grandfather worked for the government and was always very busy. He was doing this for them, for all the children who would never have a chance to grow up if those ships reached Earth. Send the response, Kang ordered. And may God forgive us for what comes next. The message was simple. Admiral Kang's face appeared on every alien screen, an old man with white hair and tired eyes, speaking in a calm voice. To the commanders of the approaching fleet, I am Admiral Kang Do-hyun of Earth. I will say this once, and I will say it clearly. Turn your ships around. Leave our system. This is not a negotiation. This is not a plea. This is your only warning. On the eternal conquest. Commander Rohal watched the message with his officers. Then he laughed. His officers laughed with him. The primitive creature was threatening them, threatening the Grand Armada that had crushed civilizations 1,000 years more advanced. Save this recording, Rohal ordered between laughs. I want to show it at the victory celebration. Only Sub-Commander Vena did not laugh. She watched the human's eyes on the screen and felt something cold in her stomach. Those eyes held no fear, no desperation, no false courage. They held something else entirely. They held pity. Commander, she said carefully, perhaps we should conduct more detailed scans of their planet before we proceed. Rohal waved his hand dismissively. For what purpose? We have scanned them thoroughly. Their strongest weapons are primitive fusion explosives. Our shields can handle 1,000 of them without damage. He stood from his chair. Continue. Approach. We attack at dawn. Vena said nothing more. But she could not shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. On Earth, Admiral Kang watched the alien fleet continue toward them, without slowing. He had hoped they would listen. He had hoped they would turn back. But deep inside, he had known they wouldn't. They're not stopping, General Park reported. No, Kang agreed quietly. They never do. He turned to face his officers. Men and women who had dedicated their lives to this moment. Scientists and soldiers who had worked in secret while the world remained ignorant. They were all watching him, waiting for his command. Activate Phase 1, Admiral Kang ordered. Show them what we really are. Across Earth's orbit, 12,000 satellites began to wake up. The satellites looked like garbage. Old metal boxes covered in dust and damage. Floating silently in Earth's orbit. For 30 years, they had drifted there, ignored by the world below and the watchers from above. Space junk, worthless debris from a primitive species still learning to crawl among the stars. That was exactly what humanity wanted everyone to believe. Deep inside each satellite, technology hummed to life. Systems that had waited decades for this moment began their activation sequences. Power cores that should not exist by any known physics started generating energy. Targeting computers calculated distances and angles with perfect accuracy. Dr. Yoon Sora watched the activation progress on her screens. Each satellite showed green, all 12,000 of them. Phase 1 complete, she announced. The defense grid is fully operational. Lieutenant Baek Jinwoo stared at the numbers in amazement, even though he had seen them 100 times before. We have enough power to crack a small moon, he said quietly. And they think we're still using nuclear weapons. That's the point, Dr. Yoon replied. Never show your true strength until you have no other choice. In the command center, Admiral Kang Do-hyun studied the tactical display. The alien fleet had crossed the orbit of Jupiter and was accelerating toward Earth. At their current speed, they would arrive in less than 2 days. 800 warships against a single planet. Admiral, General Park Minji said, "We're receiving a response from the alien commander. Put it through." Commander Rohal's face appeared on the screen. His 4 eyes looked down at them with amusement, like an adult watching a child throw a tantrum. "I received your message, human. It was very entertaining. My officers and I laughed for quite some time." Kang's expression did not change. "I am glad we could provide you with entertainment. You threaten us," Rohal continued. "You, a species that cannot even leave your own star system, threaten the Grand Armada of the Velen Dominion. Do you understand how foolish you sound? We have conquered 17 star systems. We have destroyed civilizations that were ancient before your species learned to walk upright." "I understand perfectly," Kang replied calmly. "Then you understand that your warning means nothing. We will arrive at your planet. We will establish orbit. We will disable your primitive defenses, and then we will begin the pacification process." Rohal leaned closer to the camera. "Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Some of your people will be allowed to live as servants. Resist, and we will turn your world to glass." Admiral Kang was silent for a moment. Around the world, billions of people watched this conversation through emergency broadcasts. Fear spread like a disease. Parents held their children close. People prayed to gods they had ignored for years. The end seemed near, but Kang did not show fear. His voice remained steady. "I see. Then I have one final question for you, Commander." Rohal looked slightly surprised. "Ask your question, human. In all your conquests, in all your victories against ancient civilizations, did any of them ever warn you to leave?" The alien commander blinked his 4 eyes. The question seemed to confuse him. "What do you mean?" "It's a simple question," Kang continued. "When you approached their worlds, did any of those civilizations tell you to turn around? Did any of them say, 'Do not come here,' and then simply wait?" Rohal thought about it. In his 40 campaigns, he had seen many reactions: panic, desperation, futile attacks, pathetic surrenders. But no, he realized, none of them had ever simply issued a warning and then waited calmly for the response. "No," he admitted, "they did not." "Then perhaps," Admiral Kang said softly, "you should ask yourself why we are different." The transmission ended. On the eternal conquest, silence filled the bridge. Commander Rohal stared at the blank screen where the human's face had been. The question echoed in his mind. Why are they different? Why did they warn us? Why aren't they panicking like everyone else? "Commander," Sub-Commander Vena spoke carefully, "should we increase our scanning of their planet? Perhaps there is something we missed." Rohal turned to face her. His 4 eyes narrowed with anger. "Are you suggesting that a primitive species has somehow developed weapons capable of threatening our fleet? That is impossible. We have scanned every inch of their world. We know every ship they have built, every bomb they have created. They have nothing that can stop us." "Yes, Commander. But the humans' behavior is unusual." Perhaps you have grown cowardly." Rohal cut her off. The human was bluffing. It is obvious. They know they cannot win. So they try to confuse us with strange words. It will not work. He raised his voice so all officers could hear. "Continue approach at maximum speed. We attack in 36 hours. Vena lowered her head in obedience. But her feeling of dread only grew stronger. On Earth, the waiting began. Captain Han Unji stood on the command deck of the orbital defense platform Sunlight. It wasn't really a platform in the traditional sense. From outside, it looked like a cluster of old satellites stuck together, another piece of space junk drifting in orbit. Inside, it was a weapon of unimaginable power. Han Unji was 28 years old. She had been born in the same year the Horizon Protocol started. Her father had been one of its original designers. Her mother had been one of its first scientists. Her entire life had been shaped by the secret war that humanity was preparing to fight. "All systems green," reported her second-in-command, Lieutenant Sung Taemin. He was young too, only 25. Most of the protocol's operators were young. They had been selected as children, raised in secrecy, trained for a battle they might never see. Now that battle was coming. "How are you feeling?" Unji asked Taman quietly. He considered the question. Scared, he admitted, but also ready. This is what we trained for. This is why we exist. Unji nodded. She understood perfectly. When this is over, I want to see the ocean. I've never been to the ocean. When this is over, Taman agreed. I'll go with you. Below them, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. Cities glowed like stars. Oceans reflected the light of the moon. 8 billion people were down there. Most of them unaware of the weapons floating above their heads. Most of them simply praying for a miracle. They didn't know that the miracle was already in position. Dr. Choi Yuna entered Admiral Kang's office with a tablet in her hands. She was the chief strategist of the Horizon Protocol, responsible for planning every possible battle scenario. Her simulations had run thousands of times over 30 years. The projections are complete, she said, handing him the tablet. Based on the alien fleet's formation and our weapon capabilities, total engagement time will be approximately 11 seconds. Kang read the numbers. 11 seconds to destroy 800 warships. Yes, Admiral. The quantum fold weapons have no travel time. They simply remove the space between the weapon and the target. When we fire, the effect is instant, and casualties on our side, 0. They won't be able to fire a single shot. Kang set down the tablet. He should have felt relief. Victory was assured, but he only felt tired. We're going to kill 600,000 living beings in 11 seconds. Whatever they are, whatever they've done, they are still living creatures. Quote, Dr. Choi Yuna's expression softened. We gave them a warning. We asked them to leave. They chose to ignore us. Yes, Kang agreed. They did. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the stars were bright and cold. Prepare all stations. When they enter weapon range, we fire without hesitation. If they want a war, we will give them one they never forget. The countdown to destruction had begun. The Grand Armada crossed the orbit of Mars at exactly 14:32 Earth time. 800 warships moved through the darkness like a river of steel and fire. Each ship carried thousands of soldiers ready to conquer another world. Each cannon was loaded and prepared to break another civilization. Commander Rohal stood on his bridge with arms folded behind his back. Through the window, he could see Earth growing larger. Such a small planet. Such a weak species. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. All ships have entered attack formation, his tactical officer reported. Weapon systems are charged and ready. We can begin orbital bombardment in 4 hours. Excellent, Rohal said. Signal the fleet. Today, we add another world to the Dominion. Then the alarms started screaming. Every console on the bridge suddenly lit up with red warnings. Officers shouted in confusion as their instruments showed impossible readings. Energy signatures were appearing all across human space. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. What is happening? Rohal demanded. Report. His sensor officer's voice shook with disbelief. Commander, the space debris around Earth. It's not debris. Every piece is generating power signatures unlike anything in our records. That's impossible. We scanned that debris. It was dead metal. It was hiding, Commander. All of it was hiding. On the defense platform Sunlight, Captain Han Unji watched the alien fleet through her targeting systems. The moment had arrived. 30 years of preparation. Her entire life of training. Everything came down to the next few seconds. All platforms report weapons lock. Lieutenant Sung Taemin announced. 12,000 satellites targeting 800 ships. Awaiting your command. Unji took a deep breath. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart was calm. She thought of her father, who had died 5 years ago without seeing this day. She thought of her mother, who was watching from the command center below. She thought of the ocean she had never visited. Command center. She spoke into the communication system. Sunlight is ready. All platforms are ready. In the underground bunker, Admiral Kang Do-hyun heard her words. Around him, screens showed the alien fleet in perfect detail. He could see their weapons charging, their soldiers preparing, their confidence still unbroken. They had no idea what was about to happen. Admiral, General Park Minji said softly. The fleet is in optimal range. Kang closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered the day he first learned about the alien probes. He remembered the fear he felt, the certainty that humanity was doomed. He remembered dedicating his life to giving his species a chance. Now that chance had arrived. All stations, Admiral Kang ordered, his voice carrying across every defense platform in Earth's orbit. Weapons. Free. Captain Han Eunji pressed the firing control. The satellites did not shoot beams of light. They did not launch missiles or projectiles. They did something far stranger, far more terrifying. They folded space itself. Dr. Yoon Sora had spent 30 years developing this technology. The basic principle was simple to explain but impossible to believe. Instead of sending a weapon to the target, you simply removed the space between them. The target didn't explode. It didn't burn. It was compressed into a point smaller than an atom, folded into a dimension where three-dimensional matter could not exist. The effect was instant. The effect was absolute. On the Eternal Conquest, Commander Rohal saw the ship next to him simply vanish. One moment it was there, a massive warship carrying 5,000 soldiers. The next moment, nothing. Empty space where metal and life had existed seconds before. What? He started to say. Then 10 more ships vanished, then 50, then 100. The Grand Armada was disappearing. Ships that had conquered worlds were folding into nothing. Soldiers who had never known defeat were being erased from existence. And there was no enemy to fight. No weapon to block. No attack to dodge. Just a silent death spreading through the fleet like a plague. Sub-Commander Venna screamed into her communication system. All ships, emergency retreat. Maximum speed. Get out of range. But there was no range to escape. The quantum fold weapons had no distance limit within the targeting zone. Ships that tried to run vanished just as quickly as ships that stayed. The darkness of space swallowed them without mercy. On the sunlight, Captain Han Eunji counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 100 ships gone. 4, 5, 6, 300 ships gone. 7, 8, 9, 500 ships gone. At the 10-second mark, she stopped counting targets and started counting survivors. 43 ships remained. All of them were damaged. All of them were running at maximum speed toward the edge of the solar system. Their engines burned bright with desperation as they fled from a planet they had thought was primitive. Targeting remaining vessels, Lieutenant Taeman reported. Ready to fire on your command. Yoonji's finger hovered over the control. She could destroy them all. It would take less than a second. The universe would never know that the Velen Dominion had tried to conquer Earth, but that wasn't the plan. Let them go, she said quietly. Taeman looked at her in surprise. Captain, let them go. Eunji repeated. They need to tell everyone what happened here. They need to spread the message. She leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly. The war isn't over. It's just beginning. And we need the galaxy to know who they're dealing with. On the bridge of a crippled destroyer, Sub-Commander Venna was the highest-ranking survivor. Commander Rohal was dead. The Eternal Conquest had vanished with him. 600,000 soldiers had been erased in 11 seconds. Her hands shook as she activated the long-range transmitter. The message she sent would reach the Dominion homeworld in a matter of weeks. It would change everything. This is Sub-Commander Venna of the Grand Armada. Commander Rohal is dead. The fleet is destroyed. Do not send more ships. Do not engage the humans. Her voice cracked with fear and exhaustion. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They were hiding. They were hiding everything. She paused, trying to find words for what she had witnessed. Their weapons. They don't fire anything. They just erase you from existence. There is no defense. There is no escape. If you attack them, you will die. All of you will die. The transmission ended. Venna collapsed into her chair and stared at the stars. Somewhere behind her, Earth floated in the darkness. A small blue planet that had just killed 600,000 of the galaxy's most powerful warriors without breaking a sweat. She had been right to fear them. She had been right to worry. But it didn't matter now. Nothing mattered except running as far and as fast as possible. On Earth, The skies were clear and quiet. The battle had happened in silence, in the cold vacuum of space. Most of humanity never saw a single flash of light. They simply watched their screens as the red dots representing alien ships blinked out of existence, one by one, until only a handful remained. 11 seconds. That's all it took. Admiral Kang Do-hyun stood in the command center and watched the surviving ships flee. His officers were cheering around him. Dr. Yoon Sora was crying tears of relief. General Park Min-ji was already planning the next phase of defense preparation. But Kang did not celebrate. He only felt tired and worried. Because he knew something that most people didn't understand yet. They had revealed their true power. The secret was out. Every species in the galaxy would soon know what humanity could do. Some would fear them, some would worship them, and some would come to destroy them before they became unstoppable. The first battle was over. The real war was about to begin. The world did not know how to react. For 3 days after the battle, Earth existed in a strange silence. The news channels played the same footage over and over again. The tactical displays showing 800 red dots vanishing in 11 seconds. The empty space where the Grand Armada had been, the 43 damaged ships fleeing toward the darkness. People gathered in the streets of every city, looking up at the sky. They had been told for decades that aliens were only science fiction. Now they knew the truth. Aliens were real. Aliens had come to conquer them. And somehow, impossibly, humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow. Because along with that truth came another revelation. Their own governments had been lying to them for 30 years. Admiral Kang Do-hyun stood before the United Nations General Assembly 5 days after the battle. Every world leader was present. Every camera was recording. Billions of people watched as the old man with white hair walked slowly to the podium. For 30 years, he began, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We kept a secret from you. In 2031, we detected alien probes entering our solar system. We knew then that we were not alone. We knew that something was watching us, and we knew that if we were being watched, eventually, something would come. The assembly hall was completely silent. No one moved, no one breathed. We had 2 choices, Kang continued. We could tell the world and watch civilization tear itself apart in panic. Or we could work in silence, building weapons and defenses that would give our species a chance to survive. We chose silence. We chose deception. And because of that choice, 600,000 alien soldiers are dead, and Earth still stands. He paused, letting the words sink in. I am not asking for forgiveness. What we did was a betrayal of your trust. Every government that participated in the Horizon Protocol lied to its people. We accept responsibility for that, but I want you to understand why we did it. We did it because we believed it was the only way to save you. All of you. In the crowd, Dr. Yoon Sora watched her commander speak. She had known this moment would come. The secret could not stay buried forever. Now the world knew about the quantum fold weapons. Now the world knew that 12,000 satellites above their heads could erase anything from existence. Some people would celebrate. Some would be terrified. And some would demand that the weapons be destroyed. After the speech, Admiral Kang met with his inner circle in a secure conference room. General Park Min-ji was there, along with Dr. Choi Yuna and Lieutenant Baek Jin-woo. They were all exhausted. None of them had slept more than a few hours since the battle. The public reaction is mixed, General Park reported. About 40% support what we did. Another 40% are angry about the deception. 20% are still in shock and haven't formed an opinion. Expected, Kang said quietly. What about military readiness? Dr. Choi Yuna stepped forward with her tablet. All defense platforms remain operational. Captain Han Eun-ji's team is running maintenance cycles to ensure full combat capability. But Admiral, she hesitated. We need to discuss what comes next. I know. Kang looked at the star map on the wall. It showed the known territory of the Velen Dominion. 17 star systems, trillions of citizens, an empire that had ruled this section of the galaxy for thousands of years. Sub-Commander Vena's message has reached their homeworld by now. They know what happened to their fleet. They'll come again, Lieutenant Baek said. They have to. An empire like that can't let a defeat like this go unanswered. Yes. Kang nodded slowly. But they won't make the same mistake twice. The next fleet they send will be larger. Better prepared. They'll study our weapons and try to find a counter. He turned to face his officers. We need to assume we have 5 years before the next attack. Maybe less. Dr. Yoon Sora spoke up from her corner of the room. In 5 years, we can double our satellite coverage. We can improve the quantum fold generators. We can build mobile platforms that can extend our defense range beyond Earth orbit. We also need allies, General Park added. The Dominion has enemies. Species they've conquered. Species they've threatened. If we can contact them, we might be able to build a coalition. Kang considered this. You're talking about reaching out to alien civilizations. Deliberately making contact with non-human species. We don't have a choice, Admiral. We're one planet against an empire. No matter how powerful our weapons are, we can't fight the entire galaxy alone. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the weight of this decision. Humanity was about to step onto the galactic stage. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as something else entirely, something the galaxy had never seen before. That night, Captain Han Unji sat alone on the observation deck of the Sunlight platform. She had been offered leave, a chance to finally visit the ocean she had dreamed about. But she couldn't bring herself to go. Not yet. Lieutenant Sung Taemin found her there, staring at the stars. You should rest, he said gently. You've earned it. I killed 600,000 people, Unji replied, her voice flat. Well, not people. Aliens. But they were alive. They had thoughts and feelings and families, and I erased them from existence with the push of a button. Taemin sat down beside her. They would have killed billions, 8 billion humans, gone. Our entire civilization. Destroyed. You saved everyone. I know. Unji closed her eyes. That's what makes it worse. I know it was right. I know. I would do it again. But I also know that I ended 600,000 lives in 11 seconds, and I didn't hesitate for even a moment. She opened her eyes and looked at him. What does that make me? Human, Taemin said simply. It makes you human. We do terrible things to protect the people we love. That's what we are. That's what we've always been. Unji didn't respond. She just kept staring at the stars, wondering how many other civilizations were out there. Wondering how many of them were watching Earth right now. Afraid of what humanity had become. On the other side of the solar system, the 43 surviving ships of the Grand Armada continued their slow journey home. Sub-Commander Venna had restored enough systems to maintain basic life support, but nothing more. They were limping through space, carrying the survivors of the greatest military defeat in Dominion history. She spent most of her time alone in what had been Commander Rohal's quarters. The room still smelled like him. His personal effects were still arranged on the shelves. A proud warrior who had conquered 40 worlds, erased in an instant by an enemy he had refused to take seriously. Venna played the recording of Admiral Kang's warning over and over again. The old man's calm face, his steady voice, his eyes that held no fear. Turn your ships around. Leave our system. This is not a negotiation. This is not a plea. This is your only warning. She had heard that warning. She had felt that something was wrong. But she had stayed silent, followed orders, watched her entire fleet die because one commander was too arrogant to listen. Never again, Venna promised herself. Never again would she ignore a warning like that. And when she reached home, she would make sure the Dominion understood. Earth was not a planet to be conquered. Earth was a planet to be feared. The message would spread. The galaxy would learn. And humanity would prepare for whatever came next. 3 months passed since the battle. Earth slowly returned to something like normal life. Though nothing would ever truly be normal again. People went to work. Children went to school. The world continued to turn. But everyone looked at the sky differently now. Everyone knew what was out there. The message came on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Kang Do-hyun received it in his office. Transmitted through channels that humanity didn't even know existed until recently. It was not from the Velen Dominion. It was from something called the Collective. We are 12 species united against Dominion expansion. We have watched Earth with interest since your victory. We wish to speak with your leaders. If you agree, send a ship to the coordinates provided. Send it alone. The world's governments argued for 2 weeks about how to respond. Some wanted to ignore the message, believing it was a trap. Others wanted to send an armed fleet, ready for battle. But Admiral Kang made a different recommendation. We should send one ship, he told the assembly, unarmed, with a single representative who can speak for all of humanity. That's suicide. The American president argued. We have no idea who these aliens are. They could destroy our representative the moment the ship arrives. They could. Kang agreed. But they won't. Think about it. They've been fighting the Dominion for centuries without success. They just watched us destroy the Grand Armada in 11 seconds. They're not trying to hurt us. They're trying to understand us. And more importantly, they want to know if we're going to become the next Dominion. The debate continued, but in the end, Kang's view won. A single ship would be sent, and the person on board would be Ambassador Ohana. Ambassador O was 60 years old. She had silver hair and sharp eyes that had seen too much of human cruelty and human courage. She had negotiated peace treaties on 3 continents. She had ended wars that everyone thought would never end. And now she was about to meet aliens for the first time in human history. The ship was called the Dawn. It wasn't a warship. It was a simple transport vessel, modified for long-range travel but carrying no weapons. When it launched from Earth orbit, billions of people watched and prayed. Are you afraid? Asked Captain Han Unji, who had been chosen to pilot the Dawn. She had finally visited the ocean after the battle. The salt water had helped wash away some of her nightmares, but not all of them. Ambassador O smiled softly. I've been afraid my entire career. Fear is what keeps you careful. Fear is what keeps you alive. She looked out the window at the stars streaming past, but I've also learned that fear is a poor foundation for relationships. If we want to survive in this galaxy, we need to build something stronger than fear. Like what? Trust, understanding, common purpose. The ambassador paused. The Dominion rules through terror. They conquer because they believe strength is the only thing that matters. We have a chance to show the galaxy that there's another way. The journey took 3 weeks. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found a space station floating in the darkness between stars. It was enormous, larger than any structure humanity had ever built. Lights glowed from thousands of windows. Ships of a dozen different designs were docked at its ports. A voice came through the communication system. Human vessel, you are welcome here. Please dock at Port 7. The Collective Council is waiting to speak with you. Ambassador O walked through the station's corridors with Captain Han at her side. Strange beings watched them from every direction. Some had scales, some had fur, some had no recognizable features at all, but none of them attacked. None of them threatened. They just watched with curious eyes. The council chamber was a massive circular room with 12 seats arranged around a central platform. Each seat held a different species. Some looked almost human. Others were so alien that Ambassador O couldn't tell which end was the front. You destroyed the Dominion's greatest fleet in seconds, the council speaker said. It was a tall creature with blue skin and 3 arms, speaking through a translation device. Yet you sent only 1 ship to this meeting, unarmed. Why? Ambassador O stood in the center of the platform, alone and small, but her voice was steady and clear. Because we wanted you to understand something. Our power is not our identity. We built those weapons because we had to. We would rather build friendships. Silence filled the chamber. The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways that O couldn't understand. Finally, the speaker turned back to her. For 1,000 years, we have fought the Dominion. We have lost world after world, species after species. We were beginning to believe that the strong will always crush the weak, that power is the only thing that matters in this galaxy. The creature paused. You have shown us something different. You have the power to crush anyone who opposes you, yet you extend an open hand. Why? Ambassador O thought carefully before answering. Because we know what it's like to be weak. For most of our history, we were at the mercy of forces beyond our control. Disease, famine, natural disasters, our own violent nature. We survived all of it by learning to work together, by building trust with strangers, by choosing cooperation over conquest. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We don't want to destroy the Dominion. We want to live in peace. And we want to help others live in peace too. If that means fighting, we will fight. But fighting is not our first choice. It never will be. The speaker was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, it raised one of its 3 arms in what appeared to be a gesture of respect. Perhaps there is hope for this galaxy after all. The negotiations lasted 2 weeks. When Ambassador O returned to Earth, she brought with her the first interstellar treaty in human history. The collective had agreed to share technology, provide star maps, and support humanity's entry onto the galactic stage. In return, humanity would help defend against future Dominion aggression and work toward a lasting peace. Admiral Kang Do-yun gave his final public address on the anniversary of the battle. He stood before a crowd of millions, with billions more watching around the world. 1 year ago, we faced destruction. An alien fleet came to conquer our world, and we destroyed them in 11 seconds. Some call that our greatest victory. I call it our greatest tragedy. 600,000 lives, ended in the blink of an eye. That is not something to celebrate. That is something to mourn. He paused, looking out at the faces of humanity. But what happened after that battle? That is worth celebrating. We reached out to the galaxy, not with weapons, but with words. We built alliances instead of empires. We chose to be neighbors instead of conquerors. His voice grew stronger. They ignored our warning, and we hope no one ever ignores it again. But if they do, we will still extend our hand first, because that is what makes us human. In the crowd, Dr. Yoon Sora stood beside Lieutenant Baek Jinwoo. Captain Han Unji was there too, standing next to Lieutenant Sung Taemin, General Park Minji, and Dr. Choi Yuna, Ambassador Ohana, all the people who had worked in secret for decades, preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The war had come, they had won, and now, for the first time in human history, they were looking at the stars not with fear, but with hope. Above them, the satellites still floated in silent orbit, 12,000 weapons, ready to defend Earth against any threat. But beside them now were new satellites, communication relays, linking humanity to the collective, research stations studying alien technology, the first shipyards where humanity would build its own starships. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. The Dominion was still out there, angry and afraid. More challenges would come, but humanity was no longer alone. And that made all the difference. The stars had watched Earth in silence for billions of years. Now, finally, Earth was watching back.